My name is Emily Carter, and I always thought I knew everything about my dad. He was a man of routine, discipline, and devotion to his family. Growing up in our small town in Ohio, my dad, Daniel Carter, was the kind of father who never missed a softball game, who would sit at the dinner table with us every night, and who made sure our Sundays were reserved for family barbecues. To me, he was steady, dependable, almost predictable. But all of that changed one night when I stumbled onto a truth I never could have imagined: my dad's secret romance. It was the spring after my mom, Rachel, had passed away. Losing her had shattered our family. My younger brother, Jason, had retreated into his room most of the time, drowning himself in video games. I had just started college, so every weekend I would come home to check on Dad and Jason, making sure they were holding it together. Dad worked long hours at the auto shop he owned, and when he was home, he seemed quieter than ever. He rarely smiled anymore, and though I knew he was trying to stay strong for us, the weight of grief was written all over his face. One Friday night, I arrived home earlier than usual. Jason was out at a friend's house, and Dad had said he'd be working late. But when I pulled into the driveway, his car was already there. The house was quiet, lights dim, and for a moment, I thought maybe he had gone to bed early. I dropped my bag in the hallway and was heading upstairs when I heard something. Soft laughter coming from the kitchen. Froze. It wasn't just my dad's voice. There was another voice, a woman's, low and warm. My heart skipped as I tiptoed closer, careful not to make a sound. When I peeked through the doorway, my breath caught in my throat. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table with a woman I had never seen before. She had chestnut brown hair tied loosely behind her shoulders, and she looked like she was in her 40s, close to Dad's age. There were 2 glasses of wine in front of them, and a candle flickering softly between them. Dad was laughing, really laughing, in a way I hadn't seen since before Mom passed. His eyes sparkled, and there was a gentleness in the way he looked at her that I hadn't seen in years. I stepped back quickly, heart pounding, unsure if I should confront him or slip away quietly. A swirl of emotions hit me all at once. Shock, confusion, even anger. How could he be sitting there smiling with another woman when Mom's memory still felt so fresh, so sacred? I wanted to burst into the kitchen and demand answers, but instead I hurried upstairs, careful not to let them hear me. I lay awake for hours, replaying what I saw. Part of me felt betrayed, as if Dad was moving on too fast. But another part of me couldn't ignore how happy he looked. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. Dad was back to his usual quiet self, drinking his coffee while scanning the newspaper. But I couldn't help noticing how different he seemed. Lighter, almost at peace. Days passed, and I tried to put the memory aside, but curiosity gnawed at me. Who was she? How long had this been going on? One evening, while helping Dad fold laundry, I casually asked if he'd been spending time with anyone new. He looked at me for a moment, hesitating before shaking his head and changing the subject. That told me enough, he was hiding something. The following week, I found out her name by accident. I had gone into the garage to grab some tools, and there, on Dad's workbench, was a small envelope addressed to him. The handwriting was elegant, and the return address said, Claire Bennett. I remembered the warmth in her voice, the way she looked at him. It had to be her. That Friday night, I decided I needed the truth. I stayed home while Jason went out, waiting to see if she would come over again. Sure enough, around 7 o'clock I heard Dad's car pull in, and not long after, a knock at the door. I peeked through the blinds and saw her standing there, holding a small bag, smiling nervously. Dad opened the door, and when their eyes met, it was like the rest of the world melted away. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the living room, and their heads snapped toward me. Dad's face paled, and Claire's smile faltered. Emily, Dad stammered, standing up quickly. I thought you were out tonight. I was going to be, I said quietly, my voice trembling. But I guess I needed to be here. The silence that followed was heavy. Claire looked uncomfortable, shifting on her feet, while Dad rubbed the back of his neck like he always did when he was nervous. Emily, he finally said. This is Claire. She's a friend. I let out a bitter laugh. A friend. Dad, I saw you two last week. The wine, the candle. That didn't look like just friends. His shoulders sagged and he let out a long sigh. You're right. She's more than that. Claire spoke softly then, her voice steady but kind. Emily, I know this must be hard for you. The last thing I want is to cause pain. But your father and we've known each other for a while. I looked at Dad, my chest tight. Since when? He hesitated, then met my eyes. A few months after your mom passed. I didn't plan it, Emily. I wasn't looking for anyone. But Claire. She helped me through some of the darkest days. She listened, she understood. And before I realized it, I cared about her. Hearing those words cut deep, but I also saw the honesty in his eyes. He wasn't trying to replace Mom. He was trying to survive without her. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was forgetting your mother, he continued, his voice breaking. Because I never could. I loved her with all my heart. But I also realized I can't spend the rest of my life alone. Claire makes me feel like I can breathe again. I glanced at Claire. She looked back at me with tears in her eyes, not defensive or proud, but almost apologetic. For the first time, I saw her not as the stranger who had taken my dad's attention, but as someone who truly cared for him. It wasn't easy to accept, not that night, not even in the weeks that followed. But little by little I saw the change in Dad. He laughed more. He started cooking again, even playing music in the evenings like he used to. Jason noticed it too, though he didn't know the reason yet. Eventually, Dad sat Jason down and told him the truth. Jason was shocked at first, but being younger, he seemed to accept it more quickly than I did. If she makes Dad happy, he shrugged, then I'm okay with it. Took me longer. Grief has a way of holding you back, making you cling to the past. But one afternoon, Claire invited me for coffee. Just the two of us. I almost didn't go, but something inside me told me I needed to hear her out. Over steaming mugs at the cafe, she told me about her life. How she had lost her husband years ago, how she never thought she'd find someone again. How meeting Dad had been unexpected but life-changing. She spoke about my mom too, with respect, never trying to erase her but acknowledging how much she meant to us all. By the end of that conversation, something inside me softened. I realized Claire wasn't the enemy. She wasn't replacing my mom. She was giving Dad a chance to live again. The night I found out about Dad's secret romance felt like the world had been turned upside down. But in time, I understood it wasn't a betrayal. It was a reminder that love can find its way back into our lives even after the deepest loss. My dad still loved my mom, always would. But with Claire he found hope again. And slowly I learned to accept that maybe.